want to record this moment as much as I can. Uh, so I'm just gonna say welcome, James-Olivia, so everyone listening knows that there's an official entrance. Thank you for coming back.
I'm so happy to be back. These moments are so fun to capture.
I know I was thinking as I was coming on, I was like, we can't find a time to talk on the phone, but we always find a time to get on Zoom and do one of these. And I think that just it feels meaningful to me because it's like I love ritual, and these are such rituals, aren't they? You know, like sitting down and having a focus together in a time. It just feels really nice.
There's tea, there's
There's
sunlight.
tea. Yeah, I have an empty teacup right now,
Oh, do you want to fill that?
but I don't right now actually. But
Okay.
thanks for the invitation. I was trying to look for the post that inspired me to reach out about this. But let's just forget it, and I'll just say out loud what it was. It
Yeah,
was.
I remember it
Oh, you remember
vaguely.
it? Oh, do you want to recite it for us?
Oh no, I don't remember it that well. You probably remember a lot more of what you want from it than I do, so please.
Well, I've been on this kick lately about stories about people, and I find this a convergence or a parallel. So the thing I wrote down that you wrote, essentially, what I heard or what I took from it was talking about someone instead of talking with someone.
Yeah.
And what I've been really on a kick with this last week is the stories that we tell about people to ourselves, to others, even unconsciously, how
Mhm.
much that affects our biology. So I'm coming to you from that place that I've been sitting with and practicing and noticing. But I
Yeah.
just want to know what it meant for you when you wrote it. Like what does that mean? Because it really lit me up. I felt like, yeah, talking with someone instead of about them, it's a huge difference.
Yeah, I've been seeing your post and it I think I was coming from a very similar place of I make things up about people all the time. I love it. I love to make shit up. It's so much fun
Oh
until
yeah.
it's not.
Yeah.
Like
That's right.
it's super fun until it's not fun anymore. And so I don't mind it when I'm making stuff up to my benefit.
Hmm.
I love to interpret things to my benefit and make things up to on my own behalf. Like, oh, I made that up and it feels really great. Why would I not then?
Mm-hmm.
But when I make something up and it feels really terrible and I take it as the truth, I'm like, oh, this is a decision. I'm making a decision right now and it doesn't feel good. And that's 100% mine. It has nothing to do with the person that I'm making stuff up about. And most of the time, either way, whether I'm making things up to my benefit or to my detriment, either way, it's still made up. And those made up things can be dispelled fairly easily by talking to the person that I'm making things up about. Like,
Mm-hmm. I'm just like, oh yeah, like that's the practice, isn't it? Like when I think of building capacity for conflict, I'm wondering if conflict is really just this person's going to disprove my story about them. Like what I wonder where that goes for you.
that's I think there was another post about that too. Is like, am I afraid of talking to this person because I'm so attached to my story that I can't have it anymore once they
Mm,
dispel it?
mm-hmm.
And I noticed, so I did this yesterday. I was supposed to have well, not supposed to. Somebody was like, hey, can we have a call tomorrow morning? It was before this call. And I was like, my story that I made up is like, I'm too much for this person. I'm chaos right now. I just moved into this new apartment. I am I'm internally chaotic. I am externally chaotic. Like everything is a lot. And I have like Ben was with me helping me set up. And I was like, okay, he's gonna leave at 7 or 8 a.m. I will be even more of a mess, which I was. I knew that about myself. I had a gigantic cry. And so I said to this person yesterday, I'm conditionally available and related instead of just, I'm too much. You can't handle it. I was like, I'm conditionally available. I am available for massive amounts of encouragement and sweetness and filth. And,
Mm.
and anything short of that, I can take care of myself and let's just wait.
Did you say
until I
and
don't.
filth?
Yeah, Phil.
Oh, I love
I
it.
just,
Of
just like talk
course.
dirty to me and be
Of
sweet.
course,
Like
yes. I love filth.
I'm like, encourage me, be sweet, and be dirty. These are the three things that I'm going for. And if you don't have the, desire or capacity for that, that is totally great. I can take care of myself.
Hmm.
And I just have a no for like a conversation where I will come in full blast with my chaos in this moment.
Mm.
And
And
I
what
must be
happened?
better.
What happened then?
They were like, great, I'll call you at 11.
So good. I just love this because this is exactly what I was writing about and what I've been sitting with is it's not about my story about the person, it's about what I'm feeling in my body. Your story about they can't handle me, it's like this perfect distraction from you
Yeah.
and makes it about them and like validates why you should isolate.
Yeah.
But this other place of what if I just tell them where I am, let them decide who they are, let them show me who they are in that moment. Is that so much more exciting and kinder?
Um, it's definitely kinder in every direction, for sure. The exciting part, I think I'm developing a capacity to recognize that as exciting rather than, um, like yesterday after I hit send on the text, I totally cried to Ben about it. I'm like, what have I done? I'm so much. And he's like, you are so much. It's amazing. And let them know sooner rather than later. That would be a really good thing for you.
Give them a little head start.
Yeah. He's like, it's probably good for people to see that up front. I'm like, and then they might run. And he's like, they should. If they can't handle it now, they should run.
See, there's such a humility in what you're saying because we have this I shouldn't say I have had this feeling of someone should handle whatever state I'm in, right? Like this we don't notice how entitled we can be, right? And so if I'm like someone should love me in all my states, like what the fuck? Like
That's
who
none of my business.
that is none of my business. And just to like oppress someone with all of my states, it's
Oh my
it's so
God.
it's so intense. And so I've been loving this lifestyle. Like when you said building capacity for it to be exciting, I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I I'm almost there now where I can drop something on someone that's completely gonna ruin our relationship in my story. And
Yeah.
I'm just like gawking to see what happens. And in that moment of what's gonna happen, there's like, what's the encore song going to be, you know? And I'm wondering what that's like for you.
So God, every podcast interview is just so inappropriate. Let's go there.
Be as inappropriate as possible. I'm down with
The last one was like, hey, my dog just died. You still want to do this?
that.
This one, so since then, I feel like we should just do this every 6 months because the saga unfolds.
Love it.
So Lucy's death opened up an entire beautiful thing with me and Ben. He feels things now on purpose. It's been a wild ride,
Mhm.
and he made himself available to me for me to know him in new ways since January. And it has led to us opening up our relationship and me moving to Chicago. And he is temporarily staying in New York. And so he moved me in. He just left this morning, and it was beautiful and poignant and like sweet. And we can't stop texting each other now that he's driving back right now. Um, but every relating anecdote in my life is either about how you navigate relationship anarchy with your most favorite person in the world. So Ben, who we've been doing that very, very up close, and now we're doing that at a geographic distance as of a few hours ago. And also Tinder, which I know is the slutty app, from what I've heard. Like there are all these more mindful ones, and Tinder's like the slutty one.
I know nothing
So
about it actually.
I I didn't until June 1st. Like, this is when I made my foray into the world of online dating for the first time in my life. And I'm like, this is amazing. People complain very, very loudly about the level of relating that happens on these apps. And I find it fascinating and
Mm,
delightful.
mm. Well, give me an
And
example. What does that mean?
um, I feel like just as in real life, people are either practicing a level of caution that is boring for me personally, or practicing a level of recklessness that is frightening to most people in general. So it's either like, hi, and it's like, we're on the slutty app. Let's get going here.
Let's get slutty. Yeah.
Or it's like, hey, here, like, welcome to all my states of sluttiness. And I have not gotten your name yet.
Now, which do you prefer?
I like all of them. This is the
Hmm.
thing. So I can make up stories about how cautious people are or how reckless they are or whatever, given their, opening, hey, we matched. And I'm like, I swipe recklessly. I'll match with anybody. I'm just like, who are you? I want to know you. This is fascinating. And so people show up with their caution or with their recklessness. And I'm like, I am fascinated by this. And also, I don't have to make up anything about you. I just get to show up with what I actually have. And a
Hmm.
lot of times it's me laughing. It's like, oh, is that how we're starting? Is this what's happening right now? And it leads to fantastic conversations that I am floored by. I'm floored by the distance between the stories that I make up and then what people actually come to me with when I engage them, where not just where they are, but where I am.
That's right.
Oh, wow. You just asked me how my weekend was. And that question does not excite me at all. What other questions do you have available? I am willing to answer them.
Hmm. I'm
And
just
things,
feeling that. No, I'm like I'm connecting to you that way. How not exciting that is. I I was at a party. Is it even a party? When you become a parent, you start getting invited to these kind of parent parties. Um,
like with the kids.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's not. Unfortunately, it's not the 60s, but it's it's with your kids. So everyone has their kids and they're all swimming, and it seems to be that the general conversation is like what everyone does for a living, which just kills my libido 100%. And so so I'm like, so I'm at this party and I'm talking to this guy, and he was just about to say we did for work, and I paused and I was like, can we play a game? He said, yeah, what game? And I said, let's talk about everything but what we do for a living. So if we're about to say something about what we do for a living, we're not allowed to go there. And we had this really amazing, it was like half-hour discussion, and it was so vulnerable, and I felt like I was in college again, because it was things like, what excited you this morning? It was things like, what's the weirdest thing that happened when you were eating lunch in New York City? It's like these things that are beyond like the matrix of how we're supposed to
Mhm.
relate. And it was so juicy. And I have no idea what the guy does to this day. I'm so glad. But I just, when you're talking about that level of excitement, even back to what I said about allowing someone to show me who they are,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm hearing, right? That's what's exciting, is not this
Mhm.
kind of prescribed conversation that's safe, but like, ooh, this could go any way. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. And there's a requirement, I think, for a certain amount of self-trust to know I am I am connected enough to the spiritual gift of discernment that I know when something is not for me, and I don't have any obligation to it when I know it's not for
Mm.
me. And I think that that's part of what gets sticky.
Mhm.
A lot of times it's like, okay, well, I'm open. How long do I have to stay open? And the answer is, you don't have to at all, ever.
Yes,
Like, there's not
yes.
a have to. You get to for as long as you want to.
I mean, this is really this right here what you're talking about. that's the only reason I do the work I do for myself, you know,
Mhm.
and people can take it wherever they want. But I don't do this to be like a spiritual person. I don't even do it to be happy, even though that's like this great result. But I do it for that. So I have this freedom and this liberation inside of me where I can do whatever I want to do. And so there's never a moment where I feel trapped, even when I'm
Yeah.
trapped, right? It's like I'm always, there's always another option. And I just think it's so beautiful the way you put that with self-trust, because we need those kind of barrier conversations and prescriptive kind of or formulaic, you know, ways of relating when there isn't that self-trust, because you don't know you're allowed to say no or walk away or laugh or cry or whatever it is.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is one thing that I share all the time in containers where I'm responsible for holding the container, which I don't even know if I do that anymore. But I start it, I end it.
There you go. That's more honest.
And I swim in it. But when the question comes up about, what are the rules? What are the community agreements? And my answer is, in the absence of relating, we rely on rules and roles. And in the decision to relate to one another, person to person, and meet each other where we actually are, the rules become irrelevant. Like, I don't care what the rule is. If there's a rule in one of my containers, like, we assume the best intentions. If somebody's being shitty, I do not mind kicking them out. It's not a problem for me. Like, I'm free.
Right, right.
And and if someone's taking up too much space, I'm like, take up the space, because we're free to take care of ourselves in the face of someone talking too much. It's
Mm.
not a problem.
Mm. See, I mean, you're diving into places I love to dive and swim in, because it's like in real time, you're actually inviting a freedom, which is super triggering for a lot of people. I don't know if you know Laurie Anderson. She's one of my favorite like musicians and performance
Musician,
artists.
yeah.
And she has this song called Statue of Liberty. It came out in 2001. And there's this one line where she goes, "Freedom is a scary thing, and not many people really want it." And it's so true for me. Like I get chills when I think of it, because freedom is actually lawlessness. And it doesn't mean we think lawlessness means, which is like chaos. So I see freedom as not being very chaotic at all. I see this like beautiful natural order to things.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about is like, I'm not going to police the situation to soothe what might make me uncomfortable or make
Yeah.
someone else uncomfortable. And that's a big thing to sit in, especially in today's world where there's a lot of regulating spaces and conversations.
Mhm.
How do you navigate that?
Um, show up and be congruent and feel it. I just jumped. Do you mind if I jump tracks a little bit? It's
I love
parallel.
jumping tracks.
Okay.
I have ADHD, so I'll jump all day.
So containers, like lawless containers, I think one of the most literally most lawful containers we have interpersonally is marriage. And what Ben and I are doing right now is without guardrails,
Yes.
without without laws and rules. And so there's a song that I wrote before I met him, and I knew that it was about him when I met him. But the last line is, I adore you and freedom. And every time we listen to that song, it's like, yeah, this is our song together. We adore each other and we adore freedom. And he got me set up in here and drove away this morning. He was going to leave on Friday. It's Monday. So we're recording on a Monday. He was going to stay for 4 more days. And yesterday we were like, we are both just too excited to be free for, for this to go on in this way. It's time to go, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, it's time to go. And I was like, my whole body just, like, the expansiveness of
Mm.
that was fearsome. It was like, I don't physically know how to imagine myself as big as what's happening right now. And
Mm.
when he left, we were both so happy and so in love in a way that, like, I can't imagine us being trying to follow a set of rules of what marriage is supposed to look like. And then I came up here and bawled my eyes out, just like cried and cried and cried and cried and cried until I was done. And then I was like, oh, look at that. I felt that, and it will come back, but it's not here now. And so I don't have to make out with anything that's not here right now.
I would love that. I don't have to make out with anything. That's not, I think that's the like PTSD is making out with all the things that aren't here right now. And
Yeah.
I've been really noticing that with people. It's so unconscious and innocent, so reflexive, where
Yeah.
we're in an intimate relationship with painful things that aren't happening now. And some people, they really push back on that when they hear it at first, until they start practicing, then they get what I'm saying. Because I'm not denying pain whatsoever. I'm saying until it's there, it's not yours to be in relationship with.
Yeah.
And I just love this. I love this experience of removing the guardrails, because I've been really my wife and I have been going through a similar experience of decolonizing marriage, essentially. Like this, like we're witches at heart, and so to be under this, like, this kind of like Christian rule of
Yeah.
ways that we're kind of like, I don't even know what to say, but becoming one another's property. That's how it felt to me. It doesn't
Exactly
work for
that.
me. So tell
Exactly
me about
that.
that for you.
Oh, so you actually used this word several months ago. I think in a text you said we're individuating. Is that,
Yes.
did I make that up?
No, that's
Okay.
exactly what I used.
Okay. Well, I used that with Ben this weekend. I said something about individuating, and he was like, that's it. That's the word. Like, that's the thing that we're doing right now. And we come together as, I feel like I'm channeling him right now. He probably want to be here. And he's like, can I just do this podcast interview instead of you butchering my ideas? And the answer is no. I will butcher your ideas until the end of time.
It's your job.
I will butcher everyone's ideas until the end of time. That is my job. But he oh, what was I talking about? Individuating.
Individuating. He loved it, you said?
Oh, he was like, we come together as these, like, this jumble of programs, like my
Yes.
programs meet your programs. And if we're if we're conscious at all about it, we can start taking back some of the programs and putting person in place of program. Like, oh, you know what? I'm showing up as a program. I'd like to show up as a person now. That would be, infinitely more delightful of an experience
Mm-hmm.
of being alive in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for it. Um, and so he's like, he's like, the two of us, as we have really gotten away from a lot of our programming, now we're two people and we're completely different. We like each other. I'm so grateful for this. We like each other every bit and more. Um, but we're not the same in the way that we interact with each other. And sorry, I'm doing the ADHD brain thing too, and
I'm with you. I'm like following
I'm
it.
jumping tracks back to facilitating groups.
Well, it's all connected. It's all from your body. So,
Yeah, where in these groups, like, we come together and we show up with all of our little programs,
mhm.
and some of us less and less so, thankfully, because I think that's more fun. But with a okay, I'm gonna like just smear this, my biases all over this, with an extraordinary amount of regard, it becomes more and more possible to show up with the person instead of the program, and we just keep changing, and so the rules don't mean anything. Like, the rules that we set at the beginning of the container don't mean anything half an hour in, and they don't mean anything 3 months in, and they definitely don't mean anything a year later. They don't mean anything because we're different and the rules don't apply in the same way. And so with, decolonizing marriage, the rules don't apply. Like, I think what, you two have been together for 12 years,
Yeah, 12 years.
and Ben and I have been together for 8 years. It's like, whatever rules were already missing. But nothing applies in the same way. It's like you
Mhm,
can't saddle changing people with the same kinds of structures and say
mhm.
you must fit into this structure. This is what it has to look like. It's like,
See, that's what you just said there was the gold for me is you can't put changing people in a structure. Because to me, that's the root pattern of colonization in general. Like we can see it as historical events or present day systemic oppressions. For me, it's like a design of trying to fix something in its place, dominating, right?
yeah,
And I don't know how, me personally, I just wasn't born with a mind or spirit that is okay being fixed. It just doesn't, I was born in an intersex body in like, a biracial family. Like I was born in the middle for a reason. Like nothing makes sense to me in terms of constructs or
yeah,
identities. So it's like a joke to me to think a relationship can have a fixed goal and a fixed identity and a fixed story. It has to shift as my bones shift.
yeah. Yeah. Sorry, my brain is doing that typewriter thing where there's so many words that they just sort of jam.
I like your jammed fingers too.
Yeah, it's too many. It's just too many
Yeah.
trying to come out at once. But thinking of the liminality of identities, it's like the in between. And I have a similar multi-ethnic, multicultural, multinational identity, and Ben too. Like, and I think we kind of see each other in the world and in rooms. It's like, oh, you too, huh?
Definitely.
Like,
Definitely. My friend, do you know Corinne Bell's work? Have you ever stumbled upon her? She's Tending the Roots, it's called.
oh, I love that name. I so vaguely familiar, and the Tending the Roots sounds really lovely.
Well, she has these beautiful festivals and kind of like online virtual spaces. And she did a 12-month study group with Resma Menakem's book, My Grandmother's Hands, like
Mhm.
2 or 3 years ago. And I was in the group, and you were put in three categories as you learned how to build capacity and then eventually like mix these groups. And I was put in what was called the bodies of culture. And so it's when you said we see each other in the room, times have happened virtually where I've been at an event or something and I'll get like a DM and it'll be someone from that group. And I'll be like, I was looking for a body of culture. I saw you. And it doesn't suggest that other people don't have culture, but it's when you're multi-ethnic, you're aware of all the parts that make you up. You don't have the white supremacist concept of I'm white, I'm from America. It just wasn't part of your upbringing, right?
Yeah.
So there's this like connection that we do have, and I love them. It's so special to me.
Yeah, the sort of other, like, we're others. We're
We're others.
others.
Like we can't check a box. There's no box for us here to check. Which is such a great way to grow up, really. As painful as
Yeah.
it could be, it's like, ooh, to not have a box to check. It's kind of like what we're talking about here,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. To like, these rules apply to everyone, but maybe not me. And what does that mean for how I relate? What does that
Mm,
mean for how I relate to other people and to myself and to whatever institution is asking me to check the box? It's like
mm.
I'm free in ways that other people have not yet recognized their freedom.
See, that's what I find so profound about your writing, your inquiry. Because I've said this before, your inquiry is like this really tranquil drop of water that becomes turbulent, or my body has a turbulence too, because that drop is coming from a place that I've never heard of. It's not a meme, it's not like a hashtag, it's not like a phrase. Like I've never seen live, laugh, love come up on your posts. And so, so it's and so even though it's bringing us a lot of joy right now. Maybe it should be, but it's, there's this really new thing that I hear and feel when I read your inquiries. And I do a mentorship circle for practitioners to kind of learn how to do more of this somatic work and whatever thing they do. And the piece that I'm always bringing up is like people want to be with you so they can be with like a lawless part of themselves. That's really what it comes down to. And to me, that's actually safety. Safety for me is to be in the lawlessness with someone else where like anything goes. It's so beautiful and profound. I'm rambling now. I'm going everywhere. I'm curious what you're hearing.
I love this. What I'm hearing is that the safety and the lawlessness is that everything that I have is welcome, and I do not have to extract or cut off any parts of myself in order to
That's right.
belong.
That's exactly what it is right there. It's so true. Like when you said filth, like you said like kindness and filth,
Mhm.
with your fruit conditionality.
Yeah.
That's where it is for me. It's like I want to have someone stroking my hair while I'm listening to Joanna Newsom and watching John Waters. That's what I want. That's like the perfect evening for me.
That's
So
really specific, Luis. That's very, very specific.
I'm a hard person to be with because of those specificities. But it's like that's oh my gosh, all the parts existing in one place, like that gets me off so much. It's so gorgeous to me.
It's so expansive. Like
Yes.
it's just really, really expansive. And the the hilarious thing is in this conversation with this specific person who was like, great, I'll call you at 11. I was like, oh, fantastic. We were talking about fantasy. We were talking about fantasy, and he was like, yeah, I just can't role play. Like, I don't want a script or like in this sort of fantasy. And I'm like, oh my God, thank Jeebus. I can't even imagine. The thing that makes it so exciting for me is I could encounter you, like you, not the thing,
Mhm.
the story that I've made up in my head that I think would be hot. It's the wilderness of you that I could encounter that is so exciting.
Mhm.
And it may not be my flavor all the time, but the intensity of meeting another human being in a way that nobody has ever met them before because we've never had this moment before, that is there there are
Mhm.
no rules and roles that are nearly as exciting as that. And I have that with Ben, even as he's driving away, like watching him
Mhm.
drive away and going, I'm encountering you in
Mm.
a way that no one's ever encountered you before because nobody's ever had this moment like we're having this moment. Like,
I'm just lighting up right now. Like when you see the meeting the wilderness in someone,
mhm.
it's as Eamon and I have been playing with this individuation. It, it's like when I see her not as mine, it's so attractive.
I just got chills
you
everywhere.
know and it's not attractive like in the way it might have been when I was young, where like I wanted to possess someone, and so my trauma response drawn, like I must get them, I'm kind of just speaking things. I wasn't like that when I was young. But I'm trying to imagine, what people might think my story about the audience. It's not a rush of I must secure my attachment. It's
Yeah.
like I'm literally lit up seeing how I don't own you or possess you and you're not mine. That is so beautiful and sexy to me. Like I love that.
Do you have a different relationship with faith and belonging that allowed you to have this absence of a need to possess for attachment?
You tell me what you mean by that. I'm not sure what you mean by faith and belonging.
Um, I feel like there's a certain, so I wouldn't ever say that I grew up with religious trauma. That's not to say that I didn't. I just wouldn't say that. Because I don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
But I did have two Baptist ministers as grandfathers.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so this is questionable. Um,
My stories are being written.
well, one of them was Chinese and the other one was a German Jew. So, like, the stories can go even
Amazing.
like the colonization, and there's just a lot there. And the the relationship that I have with spirit now, and the sense of belonging that I'm able to have that isn't conditioned upon religion or conditioned upon socialization or conditioned upon like attachment wounds being soothed.
Mhm.
um, that it's like Ben can drive away and I can lay down in my bed and listen to the rain and go, I'm crying and I'm scared and I belong and it's okay. Like,
Mm,
because there's
mm.
a relationship that I have with the sound of the rain and nature and gravity and the rush of bodies in a city, and like being being a part of the ecosystem rather than being outside the ecosystem trying to belong in it through shenanigans.
That's so
um
good right there. That's just so juicy.
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
really good.
that's it. That's exactly. I mean, you take me right back. Like I love hearing that now after your question, because you take me right back I grew up in a Catholic school.
Okay.
So until like I was in and out, and then seventh grade I finally left.
Mhm.
But in Catholic schools, you're at church a lot. So the school is connected to the church. So you're in school and then you have like several recesses where you leave, and the recesses you go to church and you sit and you sit there and you tell, your sins to this masked veiled man. Um and then you're and then you're given an our Father, our Father and Holy Mary. I think it was like a Holy Mary and Our Father. It's these two prayers. I've obviously released them from my brain, but you have your rosary and you're sent to the front of the church, to the very front where everyone can see you. And you have to say these prayers, and you're given a prayer for every sin. So I was
You're
always up there the longest. so there was there's this damning experience where I'm going through all these like heavenly our fathers, Hail Mary, all these things, and then I would look, I'm like, oh my god, everybody's gone. But I was really honest as a kid. I'm like, I have to get through all these prayers, like get rid of each sin. And then on your way back to the bench, everyone's like snickering because like you're the most sinning one. So that was kind of what I was bathed in. And then one day in seventh grade, I was looking at the Wicca, a guide for the solitary practitioner from Scott Cunningham. I don't know how I found it, but I was looking at the book and there were these drawings of hermaphroditic deities. And I remember thinking, oh my goddess, there's someone with a body like mine. Like I didn't know that existed. And then I went outside and I saw the trees and I was like, whoa, those big bulbous things on those trees look just like the acne scars on my face. And I saw like the androgynous birds. And it was such this moment of exactly what you just said, where I was like, I don't have to try to belong. Like there's this construct that I'll never fit into. It's designed for that. There's this whole reality that I'm already belonging in. And in that was this complete erasure of like human supremacy. It was beyond anything else. It was like, oh my gosh, we're so perverted from everything reflecting back our needs as humans. And that's when it all just started dissolving. This idea of monogamy, even this idea of owning anything, like my body even felt like a joke that I owned my body. So does that does that make sense? It's from there that all this blossoms for me, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that absolutely answers my question about your relationship with like faith and nature and belonging and spirit, and the ability to, it does directly impact your ability to practice liberation in love with other human beings, knowing they don't need me to belong any more than I need them to belong.
Yes, that's what it is
It's
right
a
there.
given.
That's
Like,
right.
let's operate under the assumption of belonging and see what is available and possible from there.
See, that interests me because when I think of you and Ben, and I'm thinking of my own experiences this year as well, and other people I've spoken to in a similar realm. I'm wondering if is there this internal, like, is he inside of you? Like, do you feel the belonging and the space for him in you to the point where you don't need to give him rules or roles to keep feeling safe in your connection? I don't know if this question makes sense, but that's where I'm going with it.
Um,
Like, do you just inherently belong in this way to him?
not to him. It's not to him. Just
Right.
belong, period.
That's it.
Just belong. And there's a special, there's a special, I don't want to say reciprocity because that sort of implies you give me, I give you, you give me, I give you, and it's a thing that's like happening, but it's not. It's I met him and loved him, and the way we describe it is our tails were wagging. Like from the moment we met, our tails have been wagging, and
That's
that
so
has never
cute.
stopped. It's like, oh, tails wagging. And my tail wags all the time. Like I have a waggy tail.
Ah.
Like I meet people and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's you. And some people are like, that's weird. And so it's a special thing when somebody else's tail is wagging too, and you're just
Mm,
like, oh wow. And so there's always been that. And there's always been the way that I was crying about this earlier today on the other call, the sweet and dirty and filthy encouraging call, where I was like, it part of where the tears are coming from is I have to make space. It takes a lot of capacity to receive an extraordinary amount of love, not just to love someone, but
that's right.
it takes great capacity to receive extraordinary love. And I have been loved extraordinarily in my lifetime and specifically by Ben.
Mhm.
I don't know where we started. We came from somewhere.
I
Are
don't even
we?
care. I'm just floating. I mean, I'm floating with this awareness and this experience of it takes capacity to receive extraordinary amounts of love.
Yeah.
That directly relates to what we were talking about earlier on Tinder with these kind of formulaic roles and rules
Mhm.
because it takes capacity to be in that wilderness,
Yeah.
with somebody not knowing where it's going to go, the same charge of being loved extraordinarily. And so these barriers to this ability to be loved really deeply, or even this ability to say the wrong thing and trigger someone, these barriers around that speak to our level of capacity for me.
Okay, now I think I remember. Belonging to versus just belonging.
Mm,
Um, the more that I have seen him, like I've been with him and witnessed him in his decolonization and our individuation and his just absolute refusal to um, go back to a place. And I'm talking specifically about like, working in corporate or returning to whatever version of monogamy we practiced before. Not to say that we wouldn't ever be monogamous again, just like that version of it wasn't based in relating as much as it was in rules, until it was based in relating. And then it wasn't monogamy anymore. But the belonging, there's a safety that comes with knowing someone else understands their own belonging, because
mhm.
they don't need anything from you
That's right there.
to establish it. nor do they need you to need them. Like it is just, it's just a choice.
Let's just pause there for a minute because we need to land soon. And that's such a great place to start landing, because I love how I asked the question. I said belong to. And when I said belong to, I felt it in my stomach.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is that there? And I'm like, oh, that's that reflexive ownership, right? I
Yeah.
belong to you. And it's so conditioned and cultured through songs and greeting cards. My cat's like wailing in the background. She's all lit up apparently. And it's this place of belonging in yourself, right? When you're in front of someone that belongs in themselves or belongs, I even love just belongs because there's no self really, it's just belongs. There's this incredible there is this incredible relief I have in my body. There's only a few people in my life I feel that with. You're one of them, actually.
You are for me too.
And it's really kindred and special. And there's this relief of nothing could ever go wrong here. It just feels like nothing could ever go wrong. Offense doesn't, like nothing could go wrong. It's just that simple, you know? Because I'm not trying to get a security from you. I feel really secure already.
Yeah.
And you reflect a certain security as well. And so it's so settling. And I think that's what I'm craving in every relationship with someone. That's why I love strangers so much, because you don't assume you belong to each other when you're strangers. You're kind of like, who are you? I don't know yet. And there's a tenderness to that, isn't there?
Who are you? I don't know yet. To have that with every person,
Yes.
no matter how long you've known them and how well they've loved you or haven't, or like, who are you? I don't know you.
Yes. Oh, my wife is going to be so happy that I talked to you today before I see her, because you're it's like it's reminding me of that importance that of practicing that I don't know who you are right now. How good that feels. I mean, I'm just saying this, just the trauma therapist to me is saying
Huh?
it's understandable that we don't do that because, again, you said capacity.
Mhm.
There's a capacity that needs to be there to actually like expand into that mystery of I don't know you. There's a defenselessness.
Yeah.
And that's not what the nervous system tends to want when it's traumatized.
No.
Like it wants defense. It's like I need a reason to stay constricted. So I'm just thinking for people listening, how radical it might sound and how juicy it might sound. And it's both. It is really juicy and it's really radical for me.
I had nothing else. I'm just grinning.
You
Just
know,
sitting here grinning.
when Marika and I were in a meeting before I came on here, and she said, "Have a great James-Olivia," and
She's so special. I love her.
she's very special. And I remember just thinking, like, she's right. She's right. It's like such a pleasant experience, to be with James-Olivia. And like, yeah, have a great James-Olivia. So I'm enjoying that right now. I want everyone to hear it.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I enjoy that very, very much.
Figured you would. This has been just a beautiful, nourishing conversation, one I needed to have. And I think the one we were going to have on the phone anyway. So it was kind of cool that it happened this way.
Yeah.
Um, you know, uh, yeah, I've always wanted to find a way to secretly record conversations of my most special friends and share it with the world so they can just see and learn and feel with us. So I'm glad that we're doing that now. Um, I'm
It's not
not
really
gonna
secret anymore. Like you just
no.
record with all of your friends now, don't you?
I guess you're right. Yeah, I guess you're right. Well, there's been a couple of times I've been on the phone with someone and I'm like, I really wish I was recording this on my podcast, which sounds very exploitative, but I promise you, maybe it is, who knows? But it's just like what wants to happen. I want to share it. It's so juicy, you know.
It sounds generous to me.
Mm, sounds nice.
Yeah,
I appreciate
it's
that.
generous.
Well, I'm not going to pretend to leave and then I'm actually gonna leave because I have to go somewhere. So this goodbye
Okay,
is a real
wonderful.
this is a real goodbye, not the like bye, and then I hit stop recording and we talk.
I'll just call this my day of real goodbyes. This is great.
Oh yeah, for real. Wow. Maybe I come into your life when there's a big goodbye, it seems like so far.
It's it's a thing. It's
It's
a
a
thing.
thing. It's a
And to have
thing.
this much joy and like just security in that. Hi, Black Kitty.
This is
All
selfish
right.
couldn't be
So
part of it. Yeah, so is there anything you want to say to anyone listening before we get off? Even anything you're really excited to do to invite people to?
um oh yeah, I do have another year of regard coming up, starting at the end of September. That's a thing. But mostly I just want to say thank you for hanging out with us. And if you got nearly as much joy and laughter, and you got to know us in this moment, like this brief moment of our lives, uh, thank you. And by all means, return the favor. I would love to know you too.
Oh God. You can find James-Olivia on Tinder at dot 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 dot. They match up with everyone, so you don't have to worry about rejection.
Reckless, bloody swiping. Just go for it.
Okay, my love, till next time.
Have a beautiful week.
Mwah.
Bye,
Bye.
Louise.